Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to transform corporate history into a really fascinating story of human ingenuity and pure grease and steel engineering. Today, we're taking a close look at a name that is practically synonymous with modern agriculture itself, Massey Ferguson. You know, the food in your fridge right now and the clothes on your back, they likely exist because of the machines this very company built. Whether you grew up on a farm yourself or you've only ever seen a tractor passing by on the highway, the story of how this brand came to shape the earth is just absolutely incredible.
So I want you to think about this for a second. How does a company go from assembling simple, hand-operated pitchforks to designing self-propelled mechanical marvels that literally changed how the entire world feeds itself? Let's dive right in. Explore the massive global footprint of Massey Ferguson and see exactly how they built this empire. Now, because we are covering over 150 years of pretty dense history today, here is our quick roadmap. We're going to hit forging a farming empire, innovation and wartime pivot, the Massey-Ferguson merger, anatomy of iconic tractors, corporate struggles and survival, and finally, a global brand reborn. All right, part one, forging a farming empire. We really have to start at the very beginning with the 19th century origins of the company. Picture the mid-19th century. It's 1847, and a guy named Daniel Massey establishes this really modest little foundry in Ontario, Canada, basically just churning out simple tools and mechanical threshers. Well, just a decade later, in 1857, his rival, Alanson Harris, buys up a nearby foundry to make hand rakes and pitchforks. For decades, these two Canadian operations are just battling it out independently. But in 1891, they have this realization that they're a whole lot stronger together. They make the monumental decision to merge and form Massey Harris Limited. And boom, they instantly become the largest agricultural equipment maker in the entire British Empire. Moving right along to part two, innovation and wartime pivot. As the decades passed, the company shifted from those basic implements to revolutionary, self-propelled mechanization. The real game changer actually hit the fields in 1938 with engineer Tom Carroll's number 20 combine. This was a huge deal, the world's very first affordable, mass-produced, self-propelled combine. But there was a catch. It was a bit too heavy and just a little too pricey for the average farmer. It was a brilliant prototype, sure, but just 3 years later, in 1941, they completely cracked the code with the number 21. It was lighter, it was cheaper, and it was a massive commercial success. This machine completely revolutionized green harvesting worldwide, taking it from back-breaking labor to an incredibly efficient mechanized process. But then World War II erupts, and Massey Harris doesn't just sit back and stick to farming. No way. They took all that heavy machinery expertise and went straight to the front lines. We're talking about producing thousands of M5 Stuart light tanks, M36 Jackson tank destroyers, and self-propelled howitzers for the U.S. Armed Forces, plus those I-162 military tractors. This entire era proved without a doubt that they could manufacture highly complex, battle-hardened machines under the immense pressure of a global conflict. That brings us to part three, the Massey-Ferguson merger. Post-war, these guys were absolutely primed for another massive transformation. By 1953, the company makes another monumental chess move. They merge with the Ferguson Company of Northern Ireland. And I mean, this was huge. They combined two massive dealer networks and distinctly different product lines into a single global powerhouse. A few years later, in 1958, they officially shortened that rather clunky Massey Harris Ferguson name down to the iconic Massey Ferguson we all know today. Now, to consolidate this newly merged brand in the minds of the public, they didn't hold back. They launched these aggressive television and radio campaigns featuring this incredibly catchy, upbeat jingle. You'd hear this male chorus singing, "He's a get up early, keep 'em rollin', Massey Ferguson kind of a man." It was pure marketing gold, right? And it perfectly captured that hardworking, salt-of-the-earth vibe of their customer base. All right, part four, anatomy of iconic tractors. It's time to get under the hood and look at the actual hardware that built this legendary reputation. Enter the MH44 in 1946. This machine was the dawn of a totally new era. See, prior to this, the company basically relied on engines from outside suppliers like Chrysler and Continental. But with the 44, Massey Harris finally installed its very own engine. It was an engineering marvel for its time. A 4-cylinder, 260 cubic inch displacement engine pushing 31.2 drawbar horsepower. But this wasn't just about raw, brute muscle. We're talking about staggering, meticulous craftsmanship. The mechanics working on these machines had to manage just incredible tolerances.
If you actually look at the service manuals from that era, they reveal that the crankshaft had to be both statically and dynamically balanced within a half-inch ounce, just to minimize vibration. That is literal watchmaker precision inside a massive dirt-churning farming machine. It really grounded their legacy in authentic grease and steel engineering. You can see this level of precision everywhere within the assembly. For instance, the connecting rods were heavy-duty, drop-forged steel fitted with high-quality tin-base Babbitt bearings. And over on the fuel side, their advanced single-plunger fuel injection pump required meticulous timing. It had to be aligned perfectly to exactly 22 degrees before top dead center. This was really high-end engineering, built specifically to survive being beaten up in the mud day in and day out. Transitioning to the 1960s, we get to see the spectacular results of that engineering legacy. They produced over 413,000 units of the MF-135 tractor out of their Coventry plant alone between 1965 and 1979. This specific tractor is still highly sought after in the 21st century secondhand market, especially in developing countries. Why? Because of its brilliantly simple mechanical construction and just legendary reliability. It's essentially the ultimate right-to-repair machine before that was even a buzzword. For sure, it's arguably the world's absolute favorite secondhand tractor to this day. Part 5. Corporate Struggles and Survival. Because A, no corporate giant is immune to a dark night of the soul. The late 70s were just absolutely brutal for the industry. High inflation, skyrocketing interest rates, and a complete worldwide agricultural crash nearly wiped the company off the map. Management, led by Conrad Black starting in 1978, imposed severe cost-cutting and layoffs, but man, it just wasn't enough. By 1980, they were basically on life support. They required a massive $250 million government bailout just to keep the lights on. They had to restructure into Verity Corporation, spin off their money-losing Combines division, faced complete insolvency by 1988, and basically fought a desperate daily battle for survival. Which brings us to our final section, Part 6, A Global Brand Reborn. From the ashes of that insolvency, a new chapter was about to begin. In 1994, United States-based AGCO Corporation swoops in to rescue the worldwide holdings of Massey Ferguson. They inject some much-needed capital, paying a whopping $328 million in cash plus stock to acquire the brand. But you kind of have to wonder, why would they pay that much money for a company that had just been dragged through such a severe financial wringer? Well, the answer was their unmatched global reach. Even in 1994, struggling as badly as they were, Massey Ferguson still commanded a massive 20% global market share. And the really crazy part? 87% of those machines were being sold completely outside of North America. AGCO desperately wanted that incredible international footprint, knowing that in return, they could help pump Massey Ferguson's presence back up inside the North American market. And you know what? That partnership absolutely worked. Under AGCO's ownership, the brand experienced a worldwide resurgence. Check out this monumental milestone that proves the ultimate resilience of the brand. In June 2022, the factory in Beauvais, France, rolled out the 1 millionth tractor bearing the Massey Ferguson brand. It was a state-of-the-art 8S.305 model. Obviously, it's a far cry from the simple hand rakes of the 1850s, but it carries the exact same hardworking DNA. So when you sit back and consider this unbelievable scale of evolution, from Daniel Massey's tiny little foundry all the way to over 1 million highly advanced machines feeding the globe, it really leaves us wondering, how will the tractors of tomorrow continue to reshape our planet? Will the next generation be entirely autonomous? Are we going to see them running entirely on green energy grids? Whatever happens, history definitely shows us that the drive to innovate how we feed the world never stops. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your curiosity rolling.